The BBC is crazy about polyamory. Polyamory, basically sexual relationships with more than two people. It's promoting polyamory forcefully. It's not just reporting a trend in society, it's leading it and pushing it. Why is that? Well, the BBC, along with progressives in general, they want to promote anything and everything, apart from man and woman fall in love, get married, have kids, stay together and bring up their own children. To them, that's just a boring non-story. They want to promote and celebrate anything apart from traditional family life. Now, they've here in polyamory, they've got a new way of undermining this ideal. So they're getting to work promoting it and normalising it. And part of their huge output on the issue of polyamory has been this pro-polyamory puppet show. So let's have a look.
Breaking free from these arbitrary limits that we've put on love. You know, why should it be that loving one person means you have to love them and only them?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because I'll tell you. Because it avoids the inevitable jealousies that will be involved. That's just part of human nature. And when, for example, a man in a relationship is overwhelmed by lust for another woman and wants to start having sex with her as well, it's often actually against his current girlfriend's will. And she might feel pressurized into allowing the husband, the partner, the boyfriend, or whatever, to go and have a relationship with another woman. And how does it work out for the children? Children in these fluid relationship situations, who are they living with? Who's mum? Who's dad? Is that changing all the time? I mean, and the other thing, let's listen to our conscience. This is just wrong. I trust my conscience and my moral intuition, and it's pretty clear on this matter, and it just says no.
The love for that person does not stop, does not cease for a moment if you're with somebody else.
It does actually, because sex is designed to bond together two people in an exclusive, committed relationship. Total commitment and loyalty to one person is undermined if there's also a relationship with other people.
My name is Ruby, and I identify as a bisexual, polyamorous house mouse. I think that's actually the first time I've ever said that out loud.
Now, don't forget, next year in the Scottish election, the BBC will be a dominant force in election coverage to the population of Scotland. If this is the sort of material they put out, how do you think they're going to treat the Scottish Family Party?
You know, it's kind of that sort of like assumption that people have that, you know, just because you're poly, that means that you're open to absolutely everybody's advances. But
you are, actually. You might not accept all the advances, but you are open to them. That's the whole point. With committed marriage, for example, then the message to the rest of the world is, no, there's going to be no relationships with any of you because we're totally committed to each other, and that's it. That's the boundary around our relationship. With polyamorous relationships, well, who knows? One of the 3 or 4 people might be open to a relationship with another 1 or 2 or whatever people. So you are actually open to these advances.
Yeah, I've been called a lot of things, you know, obviously insults from people, but also I've had kind of congratulatory dudes come up to me and say, "Oh, nice one, mate. Oh, yeah, you're sleeping with loads of girls. Oh, yeah, get in." You know, at the time I was madly in love with 2 people and they were 2 very serious relationships. So it really kind of hurt.
The truth can hurt, can't it?
You get a lot of judgment from people on the outside who don't know you.
That's right. What you're doing is wrong, and I don't need to know you personally in order to know that.
We don't get a choice in how we feel. Our body chooses for us, right?
Wrong. Your body does not choose on your behalf. But does this sound familiar? Born that way? No, it's not. It's a choice that you make. It is a choice. Some choices are wrong, and this is one of them.
I felt trapped. Freedom!
Being unfaithful is not freedom, especially not for the children in the resulting broken, confused and chaotic families.
I mean, people say that they manage monogamy just fine, that it works well, but, and I hate to be the one to break this to you, people cheat all the time. I mean, there is someone out there right now cheating, and it doesn't need to be like that.
Lots of people do it, so it must be fine. Even a moment's reflection shows that that argument has got no moral force whatsoever. It doesn't need to be like that. No, it doesn't. You're absolutely right. It doesn't need to be like that. People could be faithful and resist temptation.
You just got to remember that these things are kind of neurochemical. You're a mammal. You're a jealous mammal.
Figuring out the difference between jealousy and envy.
Yeah, that's the big one.
That was the big stumbling block, I think, in our early poly days.
Yeah.
That's interesting, isn't it? They're admitting the problems they experience, and that's because of human nature and our moral intuition. Have they really solved these problems? Have they really overcome them? I'm not so convinced. Maybe one person thinks they've overcome them. Does everyone else in the relationship think everything's okay as well? Not so sure. Are these problems solved forever? Not so sure.
As polyamory helps us grow as people. It's made me become more self-reliant, confident, organised, and a much better communicator, which has helped other parts of my life.
It just feels like a more grown-up way to have a relationship. It's about not hiding any part of who you are.
I mean, overall, that is a promotional film for polyamory, produced by the BBC. Doing it in puppets, it's almost as if they want to make it accessible to children. I don't know. Now, I thought this whole idea of polyamory, I mean, it's a terrible idea. Where do terrible ideas come from? Well, more often than not, they come from universities, social science departments in universities. So I thought I'd do a spot of research, and I got this terrible book here called Beyond Monogamy, and it's published by New York University Press. Now, really, something of this nature, I think it really should have been self-published by someone, and it should be sold in some dingy bookshop in the back streets of Leith, frequented by Patrick Harvey and the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. But no, it's published by the prestigious New York University Press. So let's have a quick look and see what it's all about. What have we got here? Given the emergence in the mainstream media of polyamory as a visible relationship form, including the BBC, I will argue that it is imperative that feminist, queer and critical race theorists take the opportunity to unpack mononormativity, develop an interest in the queer, feminist and anti-racist potential of polyamory, and advocate and cultivate polyqueer sex and relationships. Someone's getting paid to write this. Someone's getting paid to be a professor and write this stuff. But what's that saying? This is saying this is part of the wider social justice, neo-Marxist, cultural Marxist cause. The latest group we need to free from oppression are polyamorists. So there's momentum behind it. So the activists we've seen arguing for other progressive causes, they're going to be arguing for this one. Well, they are already, and they will be increasingly arguing for it in the future. Watch this space. Right, next bit. Research suggests that non-monogamy is common, if not culturally normative, in many gay men's relationships. So, if lots of gay men practice open relationships, surely they must be okay. Well, that's one way of looking at it. I would look at it more the other way around. The fact that gay relationships are often non-monogamous indicates that there's something wrong with gay relationships in general, not that there's something wrong with monogamy. Here's a new word for us: mononormativity. It's like heteronormativity. So in other words, it's the idea that people assume that monogamous relationships are normal and the best and the right way to do it, but we have to fight against this prejudice. That's the idea being presented in this book. I mean, it's basically diametrically opposed to the philosophy of the Scottish Family Party. He argued that high rates of poverty and crime in African American communities resulted from a culture of matriarchal family structure, single-parent, female-headed households with children from multiple fathers. He argued, led to the emasculation of African American men and a lack of male role models for African American boys. Moynihan's solution to poverty and crime was to establish policies that would facilitate and support male-headed, nuclear, monogamous marriages among African Americans. Well, I absolutely agree with that person. Yep, if you've got any part of society, anyone in society, if there's family breakdown, absent fathers, that's a problem, negative effect on children, particularly boys, and it's a problem to try and solve, and the solution is to encourage stable, heterosexual, committed, married family life. But she's quoting this as an example of racism. The fact that they're saying this is a problem among some black communities in America is an example of racism. And we saw that coming through with the Black Lives Matter movement a bit as well, didn't we? Right, last section from this book. Within the context of Western societies, heteronormative monogamy includes a well-established and entrenched set of norms, values, scripts and policies that reflect and sustain power relations that have historically worked in the interests of white, European and American, Christian, class-privileged, heterosexual men. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So the idea of a man and a woman having an exclusive committed sexual relationship, somehow that's discriminatory in favour of white, European and American, Christian, class-privileged and heterosexual men. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I mean, it's just total junk. Anyway, the other thing in that book, I would say, is significant sections of it were just basically pornographic writing. And for that to be published as an academic work, well, it's appalling. Anyway, so let's carry on. So looking at the media more widely, we've got the BBC, but I mean, other Channel 4, obviously, they're at the forefront of anything like this. But lots of other media, they're publishing the same sort of stories. And they're basically mush and slush stories. So it'd be stories of, here's Pete, Bob and Angie who live at number 52. They're in a polyamorous relationship. So let's go and see how they're getting on. They'll tell their stories. They'll be very much humanized and normalized. And they'll just tell their own story, which, yeah, it's great, we really like it. And then that's it. That's the end of the story. Very occasionally, you get a show where there's a debate. You've got some people saying polyamory is a good thing, and other people saying, well, they're not so sure. What you never get is a show where it's saying to people, the message is, right, committed monogamous relationships, marriage, that's the best. That's what's best for society. That's what's right and good and has the best outcomes for children. That programme never exists. So it's inevitably going to be a one-way street. You get pro-polyamory the vast majority of the time, occasionally a bit of debate about it, but never anything on the other side of the scales. So that's the way these things get pushed through the media. Now, polyamorous marriage, I mean, that will come along before too long. And maybe the Greens in Scotland will propose it anytime soon. Who knows? But the BBC is already on the case, planting the idea in people's minds. Now, I keep an eye on what's going on in Scottish schools, obviously. I've already become aware of a couple of cases in Scotland where high schools have been featuring symbols and flags that promote polyamory. So the tip of the spear is already there in schools. Now, the Reform Party, what would their take be on this? Polyamorous marriage, let's say some people brought that forward. What would the Reform Party say? They'd say no. Absolutely, they'd say this is a ridiculous idea. What is going on, those newfangled polyamorous marriage? Totally wrong, we don't need this. Absolutely terrible, no. Then in 10 years' time, those same people will be saying, well, obviously, the times have changed. We were against it at the time, but it's now the settled will and, society's moved on. But they'll be objecting to the next new thing that came along. And that's because they don't have a firm set of principles, a solid philosophy on which to base their ideas. They just oppose the latest thing that comes along. And then once it's water under the bridge, they say it's fine. Now, I think this issue is particularly concerning because some research has shown that among, for example, 16-year-olds in the United Kingdom, more than half of them regard themselves as bisexual to some degree. So if you've got a huge section of the population thinking they're bisexual, then surely it makes perfect sense. Well, if you like men and women, well, why not enter into a relationship with a man and a woman? Doesn't that seem to make sense? Isn't that, this is the route people are being led down? Now, this whole idea, now I've talked about some of the problems with polyamory already, but I would say the main intuitions around the world about sexual relationships are fourfold. Number one, sexual relationships should be committed. In a polyamorous relationship, I think it's less committed because partners can go with other partners. There'll be a lot more fluidity. Intuition number two, sexual relationships should be exclusive to two people. Well, obviously, this just blows that out of the water, totally directly contradicts it. The next one, sexual relationships should be individuated. In other words, it's not just a desire for sex or a desire for a woman. It's a desire for a particular woman or a particular man. So it's not right to say, I really felt like having sex and Samantha was there. So, she'd do, so I had sex with Samantha. I think the normal intuition is, no, that's wrong. You should be falling in love with the whole person, wanting to bond with the whole person. Now, with a polyamorous relationship, it could be, oh, I fancy having sex with Samantha, but then I met Susan and I fancied having sex with. So again, so the sex drive becomes de-individuated, if you like. It becomes plural in its direction. So that is undermined as well. And the last one is sexual relationships should be mutual. So there should be equal involvement and investment from both sides. What will tend to happen with polyamorous relationships as the network grows and grows and grows, the degree of mutuality will become unbalanced. You might have a house with people in a relationship, I don't know, 4 people in a relationship, but then one of them might have a relationship with some of the people next door as well. And where will the balance of commitment be? I mean, it can't be absolutely even. And the classic case will be a man and woman living together. A man says, I fancy having another girlfriend. What do you think? And the existing girlfriend might think, that's really terrible. I absolutely don't want that. That's really upsetting. I'm so hurt. But then she'll also think, but I live here. If I disagree, he'll kick me out. The relationship will be over. My life will be in tatters. And so she's under pressure to go along with it. And that will happen on a massive scale. I'm sure it's already happening on a massive scale. So I think women in particular are going to be vulnerable to this trend. Right, as ever, with the progressive cause when it comes to sexuality and relationships, their priority is adults getting what they want. In this case, even at the expense of other adults, it's about adults getting what they want. What it is definitely not about is children getting what they need, which is a mum and dad in a stable relationship, bringing them up in the family home. Now, in this book, it was interesting, actually. The author of the book complained, and she said, there have been lots of books and papers written about polyamory, and she said, hardly any of them mention race, because racism is really important. And I thought, racism has got nothing to do with it. I'll tell you what is important, though, too. What is absolutely key to this issue, though, is children. And her book about Beyond Monogamy, the whole book, not a single mention of the effect on children, of how this works out for children. Not a mention. But that's progressivism for you. It's all about the selfish desires of adults. So in the Scottish Family Party, you know what we believe. Heterosexual marriage is the best. It's the right thing. And these things go together. It's not that, we have some funny views, some arbitrary views about what's right and wrong. And there's also some things that work in society and some things that don't. The two always go together. Every single time they go together. And they do in this case, obviously. Now, if you declare war on human nature, you will lose. And that's what these polyamorists are doing. They're declaring war on human nature, and they will lose. And as they lose, there will be mass casualties, particularly among women and children. So thanks for watching. If you want to stand up for the philosophy and principles behind traditional marriage, then we're the party for you. Think about joining us or supporting us. Thanks for watching.